Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us for the Navy League's September Special Topic Breakfast. I'd like to introduce to you Navy League National Executive Director Mike Stevens, retired 13th Master Chief Petty Officer of the Navy, who is with us today to introduce our speaker. Sir, I'll hand it over to you.
Well, thank you, Luke. Good morning, everyone. I'm Mike Stevens, Executive Director of the Navy League. It's a pleasure to be here with you this morning. Our national president, Mr. Bill Stevenson, and I are excited to welcome our special guest today, the Program Executive Officer of Unmanned and Small Combatants, Rear Admiral Casey Moton. General Dynamics is pleased to sponsor this special topic breakfast webinar. These events provide meaningful opportunities for the defense industry and thought leaders to interface with government requirements and acquisition professionals. The Navy League is honored and privileged to organize and host this most important event. And now to our special guests. A U.S. Naval Academy and MIT grad, a native of Woodbridge, Virginia, Admiral Moton has served across all phases of surface ship design and shipbuilding as an engineering duty officer. At the Pentagon, he twice served as the Office of the Deputy Assistant Secretary of the Navy Ships, including as Chief of Staff. In May of 2019, Admiral Moton assumed command of Program Executive Office, Unmanned and Small Combatants. PEO USC is responsible for acquisition and sustainment of the Navy's expanding family of unmanned maritime systems, mine warfare systems, and small surface combatants. Admiral, thank you so much for joining us today, and I know we are all looking forward to your remarks. Over to you, sir.
All right. Thanks. Thanks very much, McPod Stevens. Hopefully, I hit all the right buttons, right, and everybody can see me. So you may have thumbs up. Should be good to go. Yeah. Thanks again, McPod. I appreciate that introduction, and I want to say good morning to the Navy League and the audience today. I am really grateful for the chance to update you on the important efforts that our team in PEO Unmanned and Small Combatants is doing. As always, I want to start by thanking the Navy League for continuing its mission of support for our nation's sea services. I don't know about you all, but that video made me want to join the Navy. So good to go, pretty awesome. In particular, I want to thank you for your innovation and perseverance during this pandemic to keep your mission going with events such as today's, even though we need to do it virtually. The sailors and civilians of PEO USC have worked hard to continue to accomplish our mission during the COVID-19 pandemic, and I want to thank the Navy League for doing the same as well. This is just outreach like this is just really important. So today is a special day. In case you are looking at the wrong calendar, it is of course New Year's Eve. At the stroke of midnight, we will welcome fiscal year 2021 and say goodbye to fiscal year 2020. We will transition with a continuing resolution, hopefully it looks like, and that, of course, is the equivalent of on the 31st of December telling all your friends and family that they can start the new year, but aren't allowed to make any new life decisions, and no matter what, can only spend on car maintenance what they spent last year. But it's a continuing resolution, and we'll keep charging. So, nevertheless, CR or not, just like December 31st, it's a good time today, I believe, to reflect on the accomplishments of the last year and to consider the year ahead and to make New Year's resolutions. So that's my plan today, to look at this milestone from the lens of the work in PEO USC for the Navy, and then to take your questions. In fiscal year 2020, PEO USC achieved some remarkable and important successes in developing and fielding new capability for the Navy in all of our focus areas, which includes small combatant shipbuilding and sustainment, mine warfare, and unmanned maritime systems. In small combatant shipbuilding, we continue what is now a very stable track record of LCS shipbuilding, with ships delivering now coming in at 40% less hours than the first ships of our block buy. Recent LCS class acceptance trial scores have been best in class. We've delivered this year 3 LCSs and commissioned 4. Of the entire class, only the last 2 ships at Austell have not yet started fabrication. I'm very proud of our shipbuilders and Navy team who were able to accomplish the mission of ship production, test, and trials during COVID-19 with precautions in place for the safety of our coworkers as a principal concern. After several appropriately administrative commissioning events, one of our LCS commissionings, the USS St. Louis, LCS 19, marked a return to the full traditional ceremony, albeit with a much reduced audience. On the waterfronts in San Diego and Mayport, LCSs are taking their place with the Navy's fleet, with 5 ships transferred into sustainment and a total of 16 ships now with the fleet. The PEO-USC and NAVC teams supported the fleet as 4 ships were deployed from both coasts for the first time. These are the first ships of our production line configuration of LCS 5 and follow to deploy. The LCS class are beginning their first C&O availabilities now, with both USS Jackson and USS Montgomery in progress. We also took important steps in increasing the combat capability of the class in new construction, modernization, and mission packages. We marked the accomplishment of our first CRAM firing event on the USS Indianapolis, LCS 17, successfully engaging its UAV drone target, and CRAM is being installed in new construction. We are also starting our lethality and survivability upgrade program with the installation of the Naval Strike Missile on the class, including on USS Gabrielle Giffords, LCS 10, who after conducting a test shot went on to conduct freedom of navigation operations in the South China Sea, carrying this new offensive weapon. PEO-USC conducted critical at-sea testing on all 3 LCS mission packages, including operational test on the final element of the surface warfare package, the surface-to-surface missile module, which employs an adapted Longbow Hellfire missile system as a superb counter fast inshore attack craft weapon. This missile module deployed on USS Detroit, LCS 7 this year. On the ASW package, the SQS-62 variable depth sonar was first deployed and operated off of LCS, and the full package with C2 and aviation integration is in test now. Our mine countermeasure systems had an important year. Our focus was system testing and platform integration of our mission components. Knifefish, our bottom and buried mine hunting UUV, and UIS, the unmanned influence sweep system, both completed operational assessments, achieved milestone C, and began low-rate initial production. Both these systems have undergone integration testing off LCS. In mine hunting, the AQS-20 towed sonar has been integrated onto the mine countermeasures USV and is undergoing testing. Our IOC'd and fielded aviation systems, the Airborne Laser Mine Detection System, ALMIDS, and the Airborne Mine Neutralization System, AMNS, are in frequent use with the fleet in exercises and training. Our MCM systems are not just intended for LCS, but are meant to operate off of other platforms and vessels of opportunity, and we demonstrated that this year with successful operations off ESB-4, the Herschel Woody Williams. Now back to shipbuilding. PEO-USC is a fun place to work for shipbuilders. We have ship classes in every stage of acquisition, with LCS in established production, FFGX at the start of detailed design, and unmanned surface vessels in the prototype experimentation and early design phase. We are also supporting our international partners here too, with the first of 4 LCS-derived multi-mission service combatants ordered by Saudi Arabia, having started construction in Marinette this fiscal year. The PEO-USC and NAVC team awarded major contracts this year that marked the important beginning of these new classes. FFGX was awarded to Fincantieri Marinette Marine at the end of April, months early to plan, making the close of a successful and important full and open competition. The award reflected the importance of the diligent groundwork prior to solicitation, including the conceptual design contracts, which allowed industry and the Navy to mature designs and conduct requirement and specification trades collaboratively, all before the request for proposals ever went out. We are now well positioned for the execution of a successful shipbuilding program based on mature hull designs and machinery plants and equipped with Navy C4I and combat systems. In our rapidly growing acquisition of unmanned vessels, our team achieved important milestones and performed foundational work this year. First, those contracts I mentioned. We made some great strides with the prototyping on our Overlord vessels and with the Sea Hunter craft, And in FY20, we ordered 2 more Overlord vessels to ramp up our at-sea experimentation. On the UUV front, the first 5 Orca XL UUVs awarded in FY18 are in initial production. We executed an IDIQ contract for the USV family of systems related efforts with 40 companies. In July, we awarded an MUSV prototype vehicle contract to L3 Harris after a full and open competition. And this month, we had a major award of studies contracts for LUSV to 6 companies. Again, a full and open competition. These prototypes and these design contracts are critical to our effort to make sure we are ready to commence program of record procurements in FY23 and follow. We conducted critical testing with both our 2 current Overlord vessels in cooperation with the OSD Strategic Capabilities Office and with Sea Hunter in cooperation with ONR and in operation with Surface Development Squadron 1. Our testing included integration with the fleet, and one of our 4 Overlord vessels made a round-trip transit from the Gulf Coast to the East Coast, during which it conducted more than 181 hours of COLREGS compliant autonomous operation over 3,193 nautical miles. So that's a long list for PEO USC for fiscal year 2020. And again, I'm very proud of my team and our broader team, which includes NAVSEA, our partner system commands and PEOs, our naval warfare centers, our industry partners, and many others. Especially with the challenges of operating with the COVID-19 pandemic, the team has really stepped up and executed to our plan. We are fulfilling the motto of PEO USC, which is to accelerate, innovate, and deliver. But just like New Year's Eve, we celebrate our accomplishments, but we look forward even more to the new year, and we resolve to keep improving and keep moving forward, and for us to achieve our acquisition mission. So for us, I want to relay to you my New Year's resolutions for fiscal year 2021. There's a lot in our plans and on our plates for this year. It's all important, and I can't and won't hit everything here today, but I'll focus on my big ticket resolutions. All of these areas have my personal focus and priority as Program Executive Officer. I have 6 resolutions for you. Resolution number 1 is continued steady execution of LCS shipbuilding. This resolution is pretty straightforward. In FY21, we will start construction on the last 2 LCS and lay keels for 3 ships. We will launch and christen 3 ships and commission 4 ships. An additional 5 ships will transition from our post-delivery phase into sustainment. I will continue to expect improvement in cost and schedule, and as a team, we will continue to expect the highest standards in quality and trials performance. Next, resolution 2 is field the ASW mission package. As I mentioned earlier, we successfully deployed our VDS off LCS this year and are in test now. This fiscal year, we will complete testing on Freedom variant and IOC the package and begin integration and test off Independence variant. The system is detecting and tracking submarines now, and this critical offensive ASW capability will be ready to field on LCS. Our work on this resolution 2 is critical for another reason, because FFGX will operate the same VDS as part of its multi-mission capability. Resolution number 3 is complete OT on MCM systems and demonstrate together on LCS. The fielding of our MCM systems can confuse, even for those well-versed in mine countermeasures, but a few precepts to remember. First precept, we are testing individually systems operationally first before the full package. So AM&S and ALMIDs are fielded with the fleet and can operate off LCS, other platforms, or ashore. Knifefish in its first capability block will test this fiscal year, as will US and Minehunting USV. Minehunting USV will complete the kill chain using these unmanned expeditionary systems. The next precept, LCS is a platform for these systems, but so are other platforms and vessels of opportunity. I already mentioned our ESB test in FY20. Last precept, the package level testing on LCS will bring all these systems on at once, but after they've done so individually and after their performance characteristics have been evaluated in operational tests. The package level test is important as a demonstration, but the system level tests that we're doing now on and off LCS are where we show that we can find and kill mines reliably with these systems. FY20 was a big year, but FY21 is a critical year for us in MCM and all three of these precepts. It's a vital focus for our entire PEO. Next, resolution 4 is improve LCS reliability and maintainability. As I mentioned, our first production line LCSs have deployed this year to 7th Fleet and 4th Fleet, along with local operations on both coasts. The ships have been successful in accomplishing their missions in support of our fleets and combatant commands, but the reliability must improve. We are gathering lessons learned in material issues and maintenance and support methods. Our focus on reliability is in key ship systems such as propulsion and controls, deck and handling systems, and radars. We have stood up an LCS strike team, a cross-functional team of our LCS shipbuilders and sustainers and engineers and logisticians who, in cooperation with the fleet, are using a metrics-based approach focused on availability drivers to generate and execute action plans. The action plans include material fixes to be installed on in-service ships, although many have already been done so in construction. The team is also focused on maintainability, working with our RMCs, in-service engineering agents, and OEMs to make the support process more efficient. And although OEMs are a key part of LCS sustainment, we want to ensure the Navy has the ability to better organically support the ships, including improvements in Navy ability to troubleshoot, to source spare parts, and to perform appropriate levels of maintenance ourselves. We are working with OEMs, showing them the metrics for how their systems are doing, and working to get the data and tools we need to be self-sufficient at the right level. I'm committed that our team is going to make a difference here, relying on the lessons learned and the metrics and the drivers, and drive up availability for the fleet commanders. Now, turning back to the future again, resolution 5, complete frigate detail design and prepare for production. Fincantieri Marinette Marine and their design partner Gibbs & Cox are already off and running on detail design, working closely with our Navy team at PMS 515 and the NAVSEA Engineering Office, NAVSEA 05. Again, we started with a solid level of design and a good mature specification done prior to RFP. A good complete detail design is foundational to efficient construction, and that is our plan. Fincantieri is also well in progress on material procurement, and they are executing their staffing and CapEx plans. The government team too is busy, including combat system and C4I integration, and our team is also preparing to conduct a thorough integrated baseline review, or IBR, with the prime contractor to ensure we have a good baseline to track cost and schedule. The success of the frigate program is essential, and we are executing the right plan to be ready for production. Finally, resolution number 6 is execute our unmanned systems prototyping and acquisition plans. In the USV arena, we are executing a robust prototyping plan using our sea-based prototypes in combination with land-based development and testing. By the end of FY21, we will have four USV prototypes on the West Coast with Surf Devron 1, 2 Overlord and 2 Sea Hunter type. This year, our 2 Overlord vessels will transit to the West Coast and execute a busy year of testing, which includes autonomous transits and development vignettes. Testing has included integration of autonomy software and automation systems and perception systems, demonstrating the ability to perform safe autonomous navigation in accordance with COLREG's rules in situations with multiple contacts in varying speeds and sea states. In FY21, we are pushing the duration of transits increasingly longer and will soon be working up to a 30-day transit. Both vessels are ready to conduct a full year of testing and experimentation, including government-furnished C4I payloads, combat system payloads, hull mechanical and electrical upgrades, and with more complex autonomous behaviors. They will continue to demonstrate automation functions of the machinery control systems, plus health monitoring by a remote supervisory operations center with the expectation of continued USV reliability. The reliability work is a key success for unmanned vessels. Testing with the Sea Hunter vessel has been and will be critical. Our FY21 plans include the use of Sea Hunter in multiple fleet exercises and tactical training events. With the Sea Hunter and the Overlord USVs, we will exercise manned ship control of multiple USVs, test command and control, perform as part of the surface action groups, and train Navy sailors on these platforms. Integration of autonomous capability is being performed on our program of record C4I systems, and the Aegis Combat System is being adapted to make LUSV and MUSV part of our netted fleet, although firing decisions will remain with the human in or on the loop. In FY21, our team will execute the awarded LUSV studies contracts and continue our foundational government efforts, such as the Unmanned Maritime Autonomy Architecture and the RAIL, Rapid Autonomy Integration Lab. The experimentation and development work is a key component of and integrated with the CNO's Unmanned Campaign Plan, whose key efforts include ensuring the network, the C2 in a blended fleet architecture, the policy and other Navy enablers that will support fielding unmanned vessels. And I'll say specifically in USVs, but also in UUVs, we're having continuous, robust discussion, two-way discussion with Congress on the best way to conduct a rigorous prototyping plan to mature the technologies and all other aspects. And I've been very grateful to the Defense Committees for their willingness to have those discussions, and I'm confident that we're going to come to a plan that all of us agree will have us ready to go to program of record when the time is ready. In the UUV arena, our team is no less busy moving forward on these critical requirements as well. Orca XL UUV production of the awarded 5 prototypes will continue. We will award a contract in FY 2021 for medium UUVs, which is a collaborative solicitation between PMS 406 and PMS 408, the Expeditionary Missions Program. We will also award the contract for the Snakehead large diameter UUV phase 2 industry prototype. All of these efforts for both USVs and UUVs, our experimentation work, our acquisition work with industry, the fleet work, and the CNO directed Navy work will together over the next 2 to 3 years have us well positioned to transition to programs of record. So lots of incredible work going on in our programs this coming fiscal year in shipbuilding and systems, LCS, frigate and unmanned, mine countermeasures and mine systems. But these resolutions are my focus areas personally: LCS shipbuilding, the ASW mission package, mine countermeasures, LCS reliability and maintainability, frigate and unmanned. Together, these efforts and the work of my team are critical to our fleet across multiple warfare areas. We are committed to doing our absolute best in fielding these systems. And I am, again, very proud to lead this team. With that, I want to thank again the Navy League and all of our listeners today. I wish everyone the best. I wish good health to you and your families in these times. And I am glad and ready to take your questions. And I look forward to a good exchange. So thank you.
Sir, thank you so much for that valuable information, and thank you for providing us with your insights and expertise today. As you mentioned, we will now transition into our question and answer portion, and here's our first question. Can you go through the specific cyber threats to our small and unmanned ship assets and how we are protecting those assets?
Sure, yeah. So on cyber, of course, I'm not going to go through specific threats because that would take us to a classification level that we can't do here. So I think rather than give kind of a threat discussion, I mean, I'll talk about what we're doing. So fundamentally, we're executing the same strategy and the same plan on all of the platforms, whether it's unmanned or small service combatants. We're executing the risk management framework that's employed by the Department of Defense and the Navy. It's a rigorous plan where we look at the threats, the architectures, we look at the protective measures that need to be done, and we tailor those to individual systems in the area. We're doing that robustly for all of our programs in the PEO. We track it very closely with my program managers weekly. And, I think, clearly cyber is something that comes up particularly on unmanned. I mean, we are fundamentally executing the same construct that we are doing. The risk management framework is that rigorous. Now, is it true that on an unmanned vessel, you might have a different risk calculus in terms of physical security, right? Yeah, that's probably true, but that's part of how we assess the cyber protections and develop the specific countermeasures that we're going to take. So I think we've got a robust plan. It's part of our testing. It's part of our specifications. It's part of what we're going to look at with industry in our design contracts. My take is that the department's got a really rigorous set of policies that we follow there, and that's what we're using in the PEO.
Thank you, sir. And here's our next question. What are the Navy's plans for procuring unmanned surface combatants, including plans for industry involvement?
Okay, yeah, great question. So I talked a lot about prototypes and programs of record. So, we have our smaller USVs that are kind of our expeditionary that we're using principally in my countermeasure. So I'm guessing that the question is probably more focused on the larger USVs. We have 2 platforms right now with initial requirements documents from OutNav. Those requirements will be refined as we do our prototyping, and that's for the medium USV, which is our smaller platform that's designed to take on a C4ISR electronic warfare type of payload. And then we have our large USV, which our plan is for that USV to have, to be part of distributed lethality with its shooting ability and a VLS magazine. Now, that's obviously been a pretty hot discussion with Congress. And so, I imagine I'll probably get a question on that too, and we can talk more. But we're working through that. But I think we're on a good plan to mature the technology to give it that capability. So, back to the focus of the question, I think, which was the plans. So we are in the prototype phase right now. We have the 2 overlords already. We ordered 2 more in FY20, as I mentioned. We have 1 Sea Hunter already with the fleet, another Sea Hunter type vessel that's gonna deliver to the Navy here in just a few months, and then we'll also go to the West Coast. So those are our prototypes. We have our first MUSV prototype on contract with L3 Harris, as I mentioned, and we have options for more. But I'll talk about what the program of record is. The program of record is that we would buy our next medium USV in FY23, and then for LUSV as well. Our program of record has us buying additional prototypes, and then our first vessel that would actually have the VLS would be an FY23 procurement. So how do we get to that path? The prototyping is absolutely key. We are. I won't repeat all that. I kind of hit that in some level of detail, I think, in my talk. But that's really a fundamental aspect. As far as working with industry, these 2 of these contracts that I mentioned are key. We have the LUSV studies contract that we awarded to 6 industry members, and I didn't get into it, but those 6 industry members have a wide range of subcontractors. So, I've got big shipbuilders involved. I've got medium shipbuilders. I've got smaller shipbuilders. I've got combat system integration companies involved. I've got companies that are doing a lot of work specializing in autonomy systems involved. So I really have a wide breadth of industry on those 6 contracts. And we're going to use that contract to mature the specifications, to mature the requirement, to help mature the design and integration of automation into the systems. We're going to use that contract to help us make trade-offs and determine what the final CDV requirement will be for LUSV. And then, we're also going to use those contracts to work very, very hard on the machinery plant reliability aspect. So that contract to me is key. We have the USV contract, IDIQ, that, as I mentioned, was awarded to 40 companies. We're already using that in a lot of areas, and I think we've got a really robust plan laid out that's going to get us to FY23 with those procurements. And industry is a key part of that, and we're having frequent communications with them. So, I think that we've got a good plan, and that's what we're executing.
Thank you, sir. One of our attendees asks, what are the logistics and readiness needs for unmanned and surface combatants?
Yeah, okay, so I think that probably meant unmanned. I'm assuming that meant unmanned and USVs. If they meant small combatants, I mean, frankly, LCS and frigate are already part of the fleet infrastructure. Certainly LCS with its forward deployed aspect, but I suspect the question was more on USVs. So, the logistics and the prototyping and the supply is something as well that we are working on, refining all of those ConOps and ConEmp and all of those aspects. I think it's completely legitimate, and it's a focus that our prototyping look at all this. As I've said in quite a few forums, USVs, we are fielding, it's not just a new ship program, we are fielding an entirely new class of naval vessel. So SurfDevron is looking at the logistics piece as well as the operation. So is my program office. It's true that clearly USVs are going to have some differences that are going to have to be tailored depending on exactly how they're going to operate with the strike groups, when they might operate forward, where they're going to operate from, and all of that is what we're looking at now as part of our ConOps work. I think it's also going to be a key piece that the CNO's unmanned campaign plan is going to work. There's nothing fundamentally different. I mean, with unmanned, it's obviously going to be less stores and less supply. They're still going to need fuel, so you're still going to have to figure out that capability. LUSV actually has a requirement for refueling while at sea, although with people on board, if we were actually doing connected replenishment. And then from a maintenance standpoint, frankly, I'm interested in innovative ideas on how to maintain. We still fundamentally have to work how we do organizational, intermediate, and development maintenance. Obviously there's not a crew on board to do organizational work, but we have the SurfDevron in the squadron. And so, I see a role for eye level there. Intermediate level will probably be a mix of Navy and contractor. And, obviously the depot level we will work out. But I tell you that mostly is where I think it'll probably go. I'm really relying on the ConOps work and the work over the next few years and the campaign plan for us to flesh it out before we're ready to go into program of record.
Thank you, sir. Here's our next question. What are the latest developments of the FFG-X frigate systems, and how do these platforms and the new autonomous unmanned tri-catamaran surface vessels compare to legacy platforms?
Yeah, so I'll kind of answer the second part of the question first. I mean, if you look at the future surface combatant force architecture of the Navy, right, there's kind of 5 pillars to that. There's large surface combatants, small combatants, medium USVs, large USVs, and then the integrated combat system. And what we're doing at TOUSC is really important. I mean, we're essentially working on, we are responsible for 3 of those 5 legs. So I do truly believe that, the future of the force is going to be a force that has a teaming aspect between manned vessels and unmanned vessels, unmanned teaming. I know that the specific numbers are of interest to a lot of folks. And, obviously there's a lot out there with the Navy's force architecture and the force architecture with OSD and the policy speeches and such from SecDev recently. And, obviously we're going to play into that. The quantity certainly makes a difference for us, but we're at the stage of prototyping that really about us, it's getting the first vessels fielded and then the quantity will follow. So I'm focused on the development and the fielding. But, regardless of the numbers, I do think, and certainly I think, the Navy is aligned on this, that these vessels are going to have an important part to play in the future force as part of our netted force. I talked about LUSV's capabilities, so I don't know that I need to hit that again. But frigate, obviously designed to be a multi-mission service combatant. LCS still has an important role to fill, but frigate is going to bring just multi-mission capability in an AAW with its Aegis warfare system, Mark 32, the ESR radar, and it's also its ASW capability, its surface capability with OTH missile, truly a multi-mission platform, but designed to also fill that size and price point, frankly, between the USVs and the larger combatants. And obviously I'm a huge fan of the larger combatants too. I mean, I spent 3 years as DDG program manager, so I do believe in the value of the mix, and FFGX is going to play an important role. And as I mentioned, FFGX is going to have the same combat systems that are on our other combatants, which is going to be better for a sustainment and for an operational philosophy. And I'm just really excited where that's going. I think we're on good track to start production on FFGX and to get into integrating those combat systems.
Thank you, sir. Can you explain the Navy's national concepts of operation for USVs, and more specifically, the LUSV platform?
Yeah, so, again, the first thing I'll start out with by saying is, and I try to hit this whenever I can, we are in prototyping mode right now and experimentation. We have the Surf Devron set up, working on the ConOps. We certainly have done a lot of work on force structure, but sometimes I think there's a perception that we're different than where we are. We're in prototype phase for the next few years. And I like to say it's really not, in my mind, all that different to the first few years that the Navy was developing naval aviation. So I'm going to start by saying that I think if we're all smart, we're going to listen and see how the prototyping goes and the feedback that we get from the Surface Development Squadron, and that's going to impact how we execute the ships. And as I mentioned, Sea Hunter that's already out there is already being used as a part of training. It's participated in SWAT training and other exercises, and is helping us learn a lot there. But I think where we see LUSV in particular is with this mission as part of distributed lethality, as part of distributed maritime operations. We see it as a capability adder to surface action groups, carrier strike groups, and others, with its magazine acting as an adjunct magazine. I don't want to get too much into this forum about whether it's going to, how it's going to operate, with carrier strike groups under the umbrella of those groups, when it might go forward and when it might not go forward. A lot of that is work that we're fleshing out, and frankly is something that would need to be talked about in a different forum. But fundamentally, it's a platform that brings additional missile cells to the Navy, and a lot of flexibility in how we use it, and maybe also a little bit different of a risk calculus at points, because it won't have sailors on board. Although, as I mentioned, humans are going to be, it's going to be part of Aegis. It's going to be netted with the rest of the force, and the firing orders are going to come from elsewhere in the force, just like they would today for a combatant that's doing engage on remote.
Thank you, sir. Our next attendee asks, what are the challenges of hull, mechanical, and electrical automation in unmanned platforms?
Yeah, okay, that's a great question. I mean, so first, I think you've got to have a good, robust machinery control system. That's a key, and you've got to have the monitoring capability. So part of what we're doing is the ability, the ships are autonomous, but we also have a remote control facility. I mean, we're already operating Sea Hunter and the Overlord vessels that way, and so they've got to have the ability to monitor the vessel, and that's that monitoring and that control piece is probably a big piece. So the next piece is that you've got to have automation, and we're already doing that certainly on Sea Hunter and both of our Overlord vessels. And I know not a lot of people have gotten a chance to see those platforms, but when you look at what we're doing in order to automate the plant, it's not it's not rocket science, to be honest. It's remote control valves, pneumatic controlled, and some electrical controlled valves. It's sea chests that are able to to have self-cleaning. It's instead of having one fuel filter, you have 2 fuel filters, and based on as your pressure, as you need to switch over, instead of having a human go down and do that, it'll do that automatically. But a lot of those things are really not developmental. I've seen them operating and they're already performing well. A lot of this kind of systems are already used in the commercial industry, the offshore oil industry. So that's the second piece. So control and then the automation. The third piece is workload is getting the preventive maintenance down. That's really a driver for things like the 30-day transit. We had a requirement in our contract that MUSV be designed for at least a 30-day transit with no planned preventive maintenance system. And some of those things I mentioned, like Sea Hunter, like strainers are designed to do that. Oil tanks that are able to circulate oil. Some of those types of things are going on, and I think we're really mature. And again, a lot of that technology is being used offshore. And then the last thing is reliability. And clearly, the systems have to be reliable in order to meet our mission timelines. There's multiple ways to meet reliability. You can do it through redundancy. You can do it by increasing mean time between failure. We are testing all of that. We are going to do a mix of sea-based testing and land-based testing. And I think all of those 3 things, or 4 things rather, so the controls, the automation, the reduced PMS, and the reliability are the 4 key efforts in order to work the HM&E plan for USVs. And I think we've got a good plan and that it's actually going well so far.
Thank you, sir. Our next attendee asks, while everyone acknowledges today that unmanned capabilities are advancing at a very rapid pace, how should we expect the Department of Defense to anticipate and somehow take advantage of convergence of unmanned technology with other technologies like artificial intelligence, 5G networks, satellite connectivity, and increasingly capable electronic sensors?
Yeah, okay, so that's a huge that's really a huge deal, as the questioner correctly asked. I mean, I think it's a major enabler of frankly, not just unmanned platforms, but the Navy in the future. And I think all you need to go do is look at CNO's public comments, and he's absolutely said the same thing. And that's something that the unmanned campaign plan is going to be key for. And I just want to foot stomp again that it's obviously critical for unmanned, but for the entire fleet as well. So how are we kind of getting after that in unmanned? So the first thing that we're going to do, and I'm going to kind of maybe hit AI at the beginning, but on the C2 and the communications networks, the first thing that we're planning on doing is that we are making sure that our USVs are going to rely on program of record C4I systems. And that's what we're doing. PEO C4I starting in FY20 is already doing work to put in the right kind of automation features and features for those systems to be able to operate on platforms without people. And they're doing that as part of our plan. But fundamentally, USVs are not charting our own course on Navy C2 and Navy's netted sensors and Navy satellite communications and 5G. We are going to be completely integrated with the course that the entire Navy is following. That PEO C4I is working, that PEO IWS is working on in terms of the weapon control systems. We have important things, our common control system that is essential for operating our UUVs and USVs and UAVs for that matter will operate off of those networks, but we're going to rely on the Navy as it moves to this robust C2 architecture. So that's the first thing we're going to do is we're going to be interoperable and netted with the Navy. The next thing that we're, from an AI standpoint, it's actually fairly limited in the first steps. I mean, as I mentioned, the weapons decision is human enter on the loop. And AI principally right now is involved in the navigation and the ability to, perceive contacts and to navigate safely around those contacts. AI is clearly just a huge priority for the Department and the Navy, and I see just a huge amount of promise. One of the things that we're doing in unmanned to make sure that our ability to harness AI grows is something that I briefly mentioned, which is called the Unmanned Maritime Autonomy Architecture. So working with industry, we want to make sure that industry has the ability to offer us innovative solutions, but we also don't want to box ourselves into one contractor or into a solution. So we have worked with industry on setting up open standards that are going to be interface standards between the different pieces of automation. And that's going to be key to us having USVs and UUVs continue to grow and continue to, as AI matures and grows, to be able to continue to take that capability on board. And I just think it's very exciting, and we're setting ourselves up the right way so that it's as easy as we can make it as the technology matures for us to feed into it.
Thank you, sir. And here's our next question. Can you talk a little bit about how you are trying to balance design considerations for the large and medium USVs when it's not clear exactly where they will be based? Surely that will drive requirements, correct?
Yeah, to an extent. I mean, part of what we're doing, the fundamental things that kind of are implied in that question, what's the support infrastructure need to look like? What's the manning structure going to be shoreside? From a vessel standpoint, its legs, its range, from both its basic endurance rate standpoint and also its autonomy standpoint. I mean, we have good starting points for those vessel characteristics with the top level requirements that we have specifically for LUSV and MUSV from N96. As I mentioned, our LUSV concept studies and the work we're going to do with our MUSV prototypes are really going to inform as we go to the CDDs on those. That's from a vessel standpoint. From a shore infrastructure standpoint, Surf Devron, again, is really helping us figure out what that construct needs to look like. And we are, already making plans on operating our vessels from our test sites and fleet areas in CONUS. And I think we're going to learn a lot there. But I don't really see, I see the ability to mature all that over the next few years as we design our prototypes. And to be ready to execute that. I mean, I'm sure that just like any new class, we'll continue to learn. Again, back to my aviation example, I think we were sort of figuring all that out at the same time. But I think we've got a good enough starting point and a good enough plan that I'm really confident in our ability to execute the prototypes and to be ready to start the production lines, in a few years down the FIDUP, as I mentioned.
Thank you, sir. This next question touches on something that we discussed a little bit earlier, but maybe we could go into a bit more detail. What are your most concerning risks in the FFGX frigate program, and what are you doing to mitigate them?
Yeah, any new shipbuilding program is hard. Anybody who's ever worked in shipbuilding and tells you that lead shipbuilding is not hard, they're making that up, because it's always hard. I do think I'll start actually with the positive, though. All of the things that we did fundamentally as part of the frigate acquisition strategy to really help with this risk, right? The requirements evaluation team that worked on, collaboratively looking at the requirements and trade-offs there. The conceptual studies contracts that we did with industry, where before we ever went to the RFP, we were able to do those trade-offs and to help retire the risk. The fact that we went with the parent design architecture on frigate, so we're not, we're fundamentally using a hull form, which has been demonstrated. We are using a machinery plant architecture, which has been demonstrated, certainly even if maybe some of the specific components and suppliers have changed. The architecture itself is the same that's employed on the French and Italian FREM frigates. And in general, there's been a real focus on frigate not to use developmental systems. So program of record C4I systems, program of record combat systems, where the interface information is known, We're not having to go in and make changes in the cabling on the ship during construction because there were some issues that maybe occurred with testing. All of those steps were taken. And then, our source selection was really thorough and rigorous. As part of the source selection, we looked at the bidders' ability to build the ship and the ability of their facilities and their infrastructure and their strengths and weaknesses, and looking at the design, and all of that was really rigorous in source selection. So, even before the contract, we took huge steps that I think are really going to de-risk. Now, from what are the risks going forward? Well, we have to execute the plan, right? I mean, clearly, Fincantieri's been building ships. They've got work to do, obviously with their capex that I mentioned and their staffing for the frigate production line, but they've got a good plan and are executing that. For the government, we've got to do all these lead ship kind of things, right? We've got to get our organizations ready, our readiness to go test the ship. There are always things that pop up. Just like the first time you're going to build a house or a building, you're going to have things that pop up, and we've just got to be ready for that and execute it. But I really think those things I started with were just foundational. And if you look at a lot of the things that trip up lead ship programs, we took proactive measures to reduce the risk in every one of those.
Thank you, sir. What electro-optical and infrared capabilities are envisioned for USVs?
Yeah, so without getting into very detailed specifics, a key part of the USVs are their perception systems, and perception systems include various things such as radar, perhaps LiDAR, advanced EOIR capability, in multiple spectrums. Again, I don't know that I'll go into specific systems, but audio, right? You got to have the ability for the vessel to detect sound, whether that's anything at sea. You got to kind of meet through the perception systems that requirement for you to have a lookout in all of those spectrums. And so the USVs will have that. Overlord already does have that. Sea Hunter has that, and we are testing a lot of that. So really advanced. And I'll tell you something that I've been really excited about. There are just commercial world is going down the unmanned automated route as well. And I've had the chance also to take briefs from several companies that aren't really playing in the military market, but that are doing unmanned vessel work for the commercial market. And I won't name specific companies, but some of these the companies out there are just doing a tremendous work in how they're taking those perception systems and what their AI is doing, in terms of processing that and making sure it has safe navigation. It is really eye-watering, and I gotta say, actually, from myself, I think as this technology matures, it's not going to be just USVs we're talking about. I think that there's a lot of potential in our future manned platforms for these types of systems and capability to be decision aids for sailors. And I think eventually we may move down that road as we prove that technology. But that's just my opinion, but that's my forecast. And I think we have both those commercial companies, but as I mentioned, we have several companies that are really already doing great work in this area: the sensors, the perception, the EOIR, and then the autonomy systems that take all that and do its mission and navigation.
Thank you, sir. We have time for one last question, and here it is. In your opinion, what is the #1 LCS maintenance issue that industry could help with? And what is your biggest technological need?
Yeah, that's a great question. So that industry could help with. I guess I'm going to cheat and not quite say just one thing, right? I'm going to reiterate a little bit from a technical perspective, right? We it's a new ship class. I know that sounds strange to say that, but as I said, the first of our production line have done our deployments, right? So from those first deployments, we're getting the lessons learned. And, you know, like any ship class, we are seeing failures, and frankly, there's more failures than there should be. And in some cases, the consequences of those failures are a little bit harder because of the philosophy for the ship. So like I kind of outlined when I spoke about that resolution, you know, I'm going to need industry to work with us and look at those metrics and look at those reports and to help move very quickly to implement fixes. And I think for the most part, they are. There's a few companies that probably could move faster, and I'm, you know, as much as people might like, I'm not going to name names here, but we have those discussions. And then, you know, from the maintainability piece, as I mentioned in the resolution, fundamentally OEMs are still a big piece, but we have got to get the needle right on organic support. And so that, you know, not only do we want to reduce how often we have failures, but we want to reduce the time it takes from having a failure to when it's corrected. And so we're having discussions with specific companies about, you know, obtaining technical manual information and technical data and some of those things that we didn't necessarily buy when the class was first procured. And, you know, I think that those companies are willing to have that discussion. It's important to us, and, you know, I think that that's going to be a focus. And I don't want to swing the needle too far. We've got to get that needle in the right place. And, you know, and I'm going to mention that that's a very cooperative effort between me and NAVC, and specifically NAVC 21, and also with the type commanders. So, you know, a little bit maybe of an amplification of my resolution, but you know, that's important, and I think we can really make a difference and are doing good things already. And but we have work to do, and we're focused on it.
Sir, thank you so much for your time today. Thank you everyone for joining us. We now have a few closing words from Navy League Executive Director Mike Stevens. Sir, I'll hand it back over to you.
All right, thank you, Luke. Admiral Moton, thank you so much for taking time out of what we know to be a busy schedule to share this information with our important audience. So don't hang up, everyone. I got a couple things I want to share with you real quick. The only thing really missing from this special topic breakfast was the virtual bacon and eggs, but we'll get working on that. For those of you that don't know, you know, the Navy League's primary mission is to educate, advocate, and support our sea services, educate the American public on the importance of strong sea services, to advocate both locally through grassroots efforts and here at Capitol Hill for the needs of our sea services. And then, of course, there's the support. You know, we support junior ROTC, we support the Sea Cadets, we support young Marines, and we also support our sea service spouses. Specifically, we work closely with Naval Service Family Line. And coming up on I believe the 25th of October in Stevens City, Virginia, just outside of Winchester, we're going to host a drive-in theater show. It's going to be Back to the Future. It starts at 5:30 p.m. on the 27th. I'm sorry, on the 25th, which is a Sunday evening. Kids are welcome. Obviously, we want the adults to come. You know, bring your dog if you want to, right? This is going to be a safe event. We're going to double up a little bit. We're going to have some costume contest, or I should say a costume parade. And we also want to, you know, kind of help the kids out with some goodie bags because they're not going to be able to trick or treat this year. And this goes a long, long ways to supporting the Navy League's efforts to support our sea service spouses. And we would really like to thank CACI and General Dynamics for being sponsors of this event. And if there's any other organizations out there that would like to be a part of this support effort with Naval Service Family Line, please contact Tish Click. I believe her email address is at the bottom of the screen. Because, you know, look, we could use all the support that we can get in our efforts to carry out the Navy League's mission. We hope the Navy League is your 501c3 of choice. If you're watching this show, then obviously you have an interest in our sea services. So please, you know, become a member of the Navy League as well. And together we'll make sure that we have a strong maritime force. Thank you so much for joining us today. Everybody have a great rest of your week, and we look forward to talking to you again. Thank you.